Science has always been a driving force of human progress, pushing the boundaries of what we know and believe.
On an ordinary farm in Scotland, scientists say a clone was created from a single cell taken from the udder of a sheep.
Many of the world's most groundbreaking discoveries stem from experiments that were as shocking as they were transformative.
They're trying to find out what makes grass green. And the answer to that question may keep us industrially busy for years.
Let's dive into some of the most unbelievable science experiments that changed the world, often sparking heated debates about ethics, humanity, and the limits of scientific curiosity. The shocking birth of the electric chair.
Ted said to me, it's all right, they'll come back on. And I wondered how he knew. Why do you think the lights went out? They were testing the electric chair.
In the late 19th century, Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla were embroiled in a bitter rivalry over electricity. Edison championed direct current, DC, while Tesla, backed by George Westinghouse, advocated for alternating current, AC, a cheaper and more efficient system. To discredit AC, Edison launched a brutal public campaign, showcasing its dangers through the electrocution of animals. He even supported the invention of the electric chair, powered by AC, to reinforce its lethal nature. In 1890, the first execution by electric chair was carried out on William Kemmler, a convicted murderer. The execution was horrific. Kemmler's body convulsed, and it took 2 attempts to kill him. The spectacle was widely criticized, yet it cemented the association of AC with death and danger in the public mind. While AC eventually triumphed as the dominant system for electricity, Edison's tactics remain a dark chapter in the history of science. His willingness to exploit fear and inflict suffering raises profound ethical questions about the lengths one can go to in pursuit of scientific dominance. Today, the electric chair stands as a grim symbol of progress achieved through questionable means, illustrating the murky intersection of science, innovation, and morality. Splitting the atom, the Manhattan Project.
We scientists who release this immense power have overwhelming responsibility in this world life and death struggle.
The Manhattan Project, initiated during World War II, was a covert scientific endeavor that changed the course of history. With a team of brilliant minds, including J. Robert Oppenheimer and Enrico Fermi, the project sought to harness the power of nuclear fission to create the first atomic bomb. The experiments were conducted under intense secrecy, and by 1945, the world's first nuclear explosion, dubbed the Trinity Test, took place in New Mexico. The success of the project culminated in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 people and ending the war. However, the ethical implications were staggering. Many scientists involved in the project expressed deep regret, with Oppenheimer famously quoting, "Now I am death, the destroyer of worlds." While the Manhattan Project demonstrated the incredible potential of nuclear science, it also ushered in the age of nuclear warfare. The Cold War saw nations amassing nuclear arsenals capable of annihilating humanity. The project remains a paradox, a scientific triumph that brought both peace and perpetual fear. Critics argue that the decision to use the bomb was as much about asserting dominance as ending the war, raising enduring questions about the morality of scientific discovery when it becomes a weapon. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study, conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service from 1932 to 1972, is one of the most notorious examples of scientific malpractice. The study aimed to observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis in African American men. Under the pretense of providing free medical care, researchers deceived 600 impoverished black men, 399 of whom had syphilis, into participating. Even after penicillin was discovered as an effective treatment in the 1940s, the researchers withheld it, choosing instead to let the disease run its course. Over decades, the men suffered severe health complications, including blindness, insanity, and death. Many unwittingly passed the disease to their spouses and children. The study caused immense suffering and eroded trust in the medical community, particularly among African Americans. Public outrage following its exposure in 1972 led to significant reforms in medical ethics, including the establishment of institutional review boards and the requirement for informed consent in clinical studies. The Tuskegee Study's legacy is a painful reminder of how science can exploit marginalized populations under the guise of progress. While it led to reforms, the damage to public trust and the lives destroyed by its negligence remain a stain on medical history. Can we ever truly reconcile scientific progress with the ethical violations it sometimes entails? Dolly the Sheep and cloning ethics. In 1996, Dolly the Sheep became the first mammal cloned from an adult somatic cell, a feat achieved by scientists at the Roslin Institute in Scotland. Using a technique called somatic cell nuclear transfer, researchers transplanted the nucleus of an adult sheep cell into an egg cell, resulting in Dolly's birth. The achievement was hailed as groundbreaking, proving that cloning was not just a fantasy of science fiction. However, Dolly's creation ignited fierce debates about the ethics of cloning. Could humans be cloned next? What would cloning mean for individuality, reproduction, and the concept of life itself? Religious and ethical groups raised concerns about playing God, while scientists debated the potential misuse of cloning technology. Moreover, Dolly's short life, she lived only 6 years before succumbing to health issues, highlighted the potential risks and complications associated with cloning. Many questioned whether the technology was worth pursuing, given its high failure rates and ethical dilemmas. Despite the controversy, Dolly paved the way for advances in regenerative medicine and the potential to resurrect extinct species. Her legacy remains both inspiring and cautionary, illustrating the dual-edged nature of scientific discovery. The question persists: how far should we go in the pursuit of replicating life? The Stanford prison experiment.
It takes science, a lot of American know-how, constant tinkering in the laboratories in Rochester, Schenectady, and Wilmington, experimenting with the mysteries of electronics, continual research, people constantly working to improve the qualities of...
In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo transformed a basement at Stanford University into a mock prison to study the psychological effects of perceived power. 24 college students were randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners, with the experiment intended to last 2 weeks. What followed shocked the world.
This was a team of mostly military guys with AK-47s. Alex was the driver. He was a 19-year-old U.S. Army Ranger, and it was a superior of his in the Rangers that organized and led the bank robbery. Alex thought the whole thing was a training exercise. He was just so brainwashed in this intense Ranger training that when a superior proposed this bank robbery, he took it as just one more kind of tactical thought experiment.
Within days, the guards began to exhibit abusive behaviors, subjecting prisoners to humiliation, psychological torture, and even physical punishment. The prisoners, in turn, became submissive, depressed, and emotionally unstable. The experiment spiraled out of control, forcing Zimbardo to terminate it after just 6 days. While the Stanford prison experiment provided valuable insights into the corrupting influence of power and the fragility of morality, it was widely criticized for its ethical shortcomings. Zimbardo's dual role as both experimenter and prison superintendent blurred the lines of objectivity, and many participants reported lasting psychological harm. The study's findings remain relevant in discussions about systemic abuse, from police brutality to prison reform. However, critics argue that the experiment was more a theatrical performance than rigorous science. Was it truly a groundbreaking revelation, or an unethical indulgence in human suffering? Zimbardo's experiment continues to provoke debates about the boundaries of psychological research and the ethics of human experimentation. Milgrams Obedience Study.
Your normal law-abiding concepts out of the window. Here's a chance to raise merry hell.
In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram sought to understand obedience to authority, particularly in light of atrocities committed during World War II. In his now infamous experiment, participants were instructed to deliver electric shocks to another person, an actor, whenever they answered questions incorrectly. The shocks increased in intensity, with labels like danger, severe shock at higher levels. To Milgram's surprise, 65% of participants followed instructions to the end, administering what they believed were lethal shocks, despite hearing the actor's screams and pleas to stop. The study revealed a disturbing willingness to obey authority figures, even at the expense of personal morality. The experiment faced harsh criticism for its ethical implications. Participants were deceived about the nature of the study, and many experienced significant emotional distress upon learning what they had done. Critics questioned whether the psychological harm outweighed the knowledge gained. Despite the controversy, Milgram's work remains one of the most influential studies in social psychology. It sheds light on how ordinary people can commit extraordinary acts of cruelty under the influence of authority, offering a grim reminder of humanity's capacity for obedience. The study's ethical flaws, however, continue to provoke debates about the limits of psychological experimentation. Operation Paperclip: Nazi Science in America.
Captured film from Nazi Germany reveals further secrets of the V-2 rocket that blasted England and terrorized her civilians.
In the aftermath of World War II, the US launched Operation Paperclip, a secret program to recruit German scientists, many of whom had been key players in the Nazi regime. These scientists, including Werner von Braun, who developed rockets for Hitler's military, were brought to America to work on advanced technologies such as ballistic missiles and space exploration. While their contributions propelled the US to global dominance in the space race, the ethical implications of the operation were staggering. These men, some complicit in Nazi atrocities, were shielded from prosecution and given new identities to erase their pasts. Critics argue that the US prioritized Cold War superiority over justice, effectively whitewashing war crimes in the name of progress. Werner von Braun, for example, played a pivotal role in NASA's Apollo program, helping the US land on the moon. Yet his past involvement in forced labor camps where thousands died remains a dark shadow over his legacy. Operation Paperclip underscores the moral dilemmas of scientific advancement. Can the pursuit of innovation justify collaborating with those who have committed heinous acts? The program's success is undeniable, but its ethical cost continues to provoke fierce debate about the limits of forgiveness and the lengths nations will go to in the name of power. Henrietta Lacks and Immortal Cells. In 1951, Henrietta Lacks, a poor African-American woman, sought treatment for cervical cancer at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Unbeknownst to her or her family, doctors took samples of her cancerous cells during treatment. These cells, later named HeLa cells, became the first immortal cell line capable of dividing indefinitely in laboratory conditions. HeLa cells revolutionized medicine. They were instrumental in developing the polio vaccine, cancer treatments, in vitro fertilization, and countless other breakthroughs. However, their use also sparked a massive ethical controversy. Lacks and her family were never informed about or compensated for the use of her cells, raising questions about consent and exploitation, particularly of marginalized communities. Decades later, Henrietta's story came to light, bringing attention to the injustices faced by her family and the broader issue of ethics in medical research. The revelation led to reforms, including stricter guidelines for obtaining informed consent. While HeLa cells saved millions of lives, the way they were obtained highlights the dark history of medical research exploiting vulnerable populations. Lacks's story is a powerful reminder of the need to balance scientific progress with respect for human dignity. Can science truly be celebrated when it disregards the rights of the individuals it depends on? The Russian sleep experiment, fact or cautionary fiction? The Russian sleep experiment has become infamous as a macabre tale of unchecked scientific ambition. While likely fictional, the story describes Soviet researchers in the 1940s who used a gas-based stimulant to keep test subjects awake for 15 days. Initially cooperative, the subjects descended into madness, self-mutilation, and ultimately death. Though apocryphal, the tale serves as a chilling allegory about the potential dangers of unethical science. Experiments in sleep deprivation have been conducted throughout history, albeit under more controlled circumstances. Prolonged sleep deprivation is known to cause hallucinations, cognitive impairment, and even death, making the experiment disturbingly plausible. The story raises critical questions about the ethical boundaries of research. Could similar experiments occur behind closed doors in the pursuit of military or scientific advantage? Even if fictional, the Russian sleep experiment reflects humanity's unease with the extremes of science, where curiosity can give way to cruelty. The enduring popularity of the story highlights the need for transparency and accountability in research. Whether fact or fiction, it reminds us of the thin line between experimentation and inhumanity. How far would scientists go if unrestrained by ethical guidelines? MKUltra, mind control and manipulation.
One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
The CIA's secretive MKUltra program, launched in the 1950s, sought to explore mind control techniques during the height of Cold War paranoia. The program conducted experiments on unwitting subjects, using drugs like LSD, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. The goal was to develop methods for controlling or manipulating the human mind, often to gain an advantage in espionage. The experiments were often inhumane. Subjects included prisoners, psychiatric patients, and even ordinary citizens who were unaware they were being drugged. Some experienced severe psychological trauma, and several deaths were linked to the program. MKUltra was exposed in the 1970s, leading to widespread outrage and a series of government hearings. The revelations not only damaged public trust in the CIA, but also sparked debates about the ethics of government-sponsored experiments. While MKUltra yielded little in terms of practical results, its legacy is a grim reminder of the lengths governments will go to in the name of national security. The program's secrecy and disregard for human rights raise chilling questions. What other experiments might remain hidden from public view? Can we trust those in power to prioritize humanity over ambition? Which of these experiments shocked you the most? Or do you think the price of progress is always worth paying? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this dive into the most controversial science experiments thought-provoking, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the fascinating, the groundbreaking, and the unsettling.